Hello and welcome to the Silver Edition. I'm Caitlin Geib, and our guest today is Aldo Leopold Nature Center President and Executive Director Betsy Parker. Betsy, welcome to our program.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. For our audience, can you share a bit about yourself and how long you've been working at the Aldo Leopold Nature Center?
Well, I started at the Nature Center a very long time ago in the year 2000. I got a bachelor's degree in conservation biology, and I started as an educator at the Nature Center. And I worked there until my children were little, and I took a break. And then I came back about 15 years ago, and since then I've changed roles a couple of times. I went back to school and got my master's degree in nonprofit leadership, and I've been the executive director for a little over a year now.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Betsy, can you share a little about the Nature Center and how long it has existed?
Well, when I tell the story of the Nature Center, I actually like to start 10,000 years ago during the last ice age, because that is when the land formation was created that forms the hillside where the Nature Center is situated. So that's called a glacial drumlin. And then 1,000 years ago, of course, is when the Ho-Chunk Nation was living here, and they built mounds on the top of that glacial drumlin hill. But about 100 years ago, that land just below the hillside was a tuberculosis sanitarium. And even then, people knew that nature was a healing space. And so a lot of that land was pleasure ground for people there at the tuberculosis center. And then it was actually about 30 years ago when the land there was slated for development. And the city of Monona rallied and had a citywide petition to save the land from development and to create a public space that is now the Aldo Leopold Nature Center. So our trails and land are open to the public, and it's considered Monona land. And then the programming has existed since about 1997.
Can you describe the programs that go on at the Nature Center?
Sure. So I think we mostly started out as a place for school field trips. So maybe some of you have all been to Aldo Leopold on a school field trip. And of course, we are also famous for our summer camp program, which is a day camp. And about 5 years ago, though, we decided that in the winter, when there weren't field trips happening, we should still be busy and still be teaching children about the importance of being outdoors. So we've changed our business model a little bit, and now we have year-round programming like our nature preschool that started in 2019. We also have an after-school program, and that serves 3 schools right here in the area where we pick them up from school, and they're there until their parents pick them up, learning conservation work and doing things on the land. We also have a homeschool program, which existed previously and then really picked up during the pandemic and has been thriving ever since then. So we have once or twice a week programs for homeschool students. And so we're really busy year-round now. We still do our field trips and we still have our summer camp, but we have classrooms bursting at the seams.
Besides the programs you just described, can you share what other activities the public can participate in at the Nature Center?
Yeah, so just last Saturday we had our annual candlelit hike. So we try to promote that things can be done even in the wintertime with families and have a family-friendly event. We'll pretty soon have our Maple Fest, which is coming up in March. We always do a Fall Fest in October. And like I mentioned before, the trails are always open. They're considered public land, and we have weekend hours when people can drop in. So there's always something happening.
How can folks get involved at the Nature Center?
Well, we are growing our volunteer program. So some volunteers sit at the front desk and help greet visitors. We also have land steward work days on the weekends during the warm season, but some volunteers come to help at the events that I mentioned. So there's lots of ways to get involved. You could also become a donor, which many of our families end up doing, or philanthropists in the community. So there's lots of ways to get involved.
Yes. And as we begin to wrap up our show today, do you have anything that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Anything I'd like to share? Well, we talk a lot about the importance of children being out in nature, particularly as our planet is facing the woes that it is. And I think that it's so important that kids get out at an early age to have an understanding as they get to be closer to your age. And I always tell this story about, I think so important is that time period between when we're seeing kids if they're coming for our preschool and our summer camp and to when they get to be your age. I think that's a critical stage. I always tell this story about children who come in those early ages, they find a frog and they say, wow. And then children come older and they say, ew. So I think there's a big amount of work to be done there in helping students your age bridge that gap to still say, wow, when you get to see things in nature, or thinking about how to be civic-minded when it comes to saving our planet. So maybe if you've had that wow as a kid and still have the wow as a high schooler, you think about ways to help save the land, how to talk to politicians, even how to talk to your relatives about the importance of nature and the world around us.
Yeah. Well, Betsy, thank you so much for coming today. And if you would like to see more episodes of the Silver Edition, please visit us on Monona Community Media's YouTube page or download the Monona Go app by going to your smartphone's app store. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time.